Deputy Governor Diwa Gunigundo, Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, Trade and Industry Secretary Gregory Domingo, Transportation Secretary Jose Emilio Abaya, Public Works and Highway Secretary Rogelio Singson, Energy Secretary Carlos Jericho Petilla, Agriculture Secretary Proceso Alcala, Tourism Secretary Ramon Jimenez, and from a private sector, Nara Venture Capital Managing Partner Paco Sandejas, and Aboitiz Equity Ventures President and CEO Eramon Aboitiz. At this point, let me introduce our moderator for the panel discussion and open forum. He is the private sector co-chairman of the National Competitiveness Council, a public-private sector body dedicated to developing a strategy for the long-term competitiveness of the Philippines through policy reforms, project implementation, institution building, and performance monitoring. He served as Executive Vice President and CEO of Ayala Foundation from 2006 to 2011, and is the Executive Director of the Makati Business Club from 1987 to 2006. Ladies and gentlemen, NCC Private Sector Co-Chair Bill Luz.
Thank you. Thank you, Claro.
Bill, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Claro. Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Philippine Economic Team, friends in business, media, NGOs, good morning and welcome to this panel discussion. We have before you a huge panel, and so I want to be very efficient and give as much time as possible for questions. Before we proceed to the questions, let me just quickly run through short statements from each of the economic managers. You've heard the performance for 2012 and the past. So what I'd like to do is maybe let's ask what's in store for 2013 and beyond. I think everybody's concerned about what happens in the next 3 years. How do we make sure that the reforms are irreversible? How are they fully put in place and institutionalized? So maybe we'll focus our discussion on that. And let me start with BSP Deputy Governor Diwa Gunigundo.
Thank you very much, Bill. Moving towards 2013, 14, and 15, we expect that the domestic inflation will continue to range between 3 to 5%. This means that the Bangko Sentral will have enough monetary space to continue providing an environment where credit and liquidity growth will remain supportive of economic activity and therefore sustainable economic growth. At the same time, we would expect that the balance of payments, the current account, will continue to show surpluses in their respective positions. And that means the current account consisting of exports, remittances, and trade, including revenues from business process outsourcing, will continue to bring in dollars that will provide continued sustainability and stability to the Philippine peso. And that means a lot, particularly for sustaining economic activity. The banking system is expected to continue to remain strong and sound, and that means financial intermediation will be sustained, intermediating between savings and investment, and therefore that is also expected to help sustain economic growth. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you very much, Deputy Governor. Let's move to Secretary RC. We're midway through the Philippine Development Plan. You're reviewing it. What happens moving forward? How do we catch up where we are behind, and how do we accelerate where we're just on track with the Philippine Development Plan?
Well, we, for this year, expecting a growth of 6 to 7% and a little higher starting next year. Based on our plans, we expect to see consumption on the demand side, to continue fueling the expansion of the economy. But at the same time, we expect government spending, particularly in infrastructure, and also private investment to pick up this year and beyond. Looking at it from the supply side, services will continue to fuel the economy, but within services, we are seeing tourism and BPO to further strengthen, and also manufacturing to gain momentum. We are encouraged by the increasing pace of manufacturing starting in the third quarter of last year, and we see that we expect to see a faster pace this year, such that the economy will increasingly become more investment driven rather than what has been happening in the past. It's largely consumption driven economy. The big challenge, though, is the employment content of the growth. That is what we need to work on and focus on this year and in the coming years. We need to accelerate our spending in our program in infrastructure development to connect the various growth centers of the country, and particularly connecting rural and urban areas. We need, as pointed out earlier, to reduce the cost of doing business in this country, the administrative and bureaucratic inefficiencies. There is still a lot of scope.
Thank you, Sec. RC. Secretary Domingo, I think one of the big questions is the foreign direct investments and how do we accelerate the pace of FDI in the country. Would you care to comment on what the strategy is for that?
In terms of investments, I think you're already seeing the results of it in terms of the strength in the manufacturing sector. In the third, as Secretary Balisacan mentioned, in the third and fourth quarters of 2012, manufacturing was the fastest growing sector GDP-wise. It surpassed services, which has been traditionally, in the last decade, has been the strongest source of our growth. And based on the registrations with BOI and PEZA, 2011 was a banner year, wherein we saw over 650 billion pesos of investments registered. And in 2012, we surpassed that slightly. And these are, if you translate that in terms of dollars, that's over $15 billion in registered investments. And the realization rate of PEZA is quite high, close to over 98%, while in BOI the realization rate is closer to 80%. Now, in terms also of just another benchmark that I look at usually is the inbound missions. In 2012, relative to 2011, there was an increase of over 60% in terms of the inbound missions that came into the Philippines. We were very busy last year entertaining all these foreign investors looking at various opportunities. And I think 2013 will surpass the stellar year of 2012 in terms of inbound missions. I've already been informed by many of the embassies and other groups of the inbound missions that are planned to be coming to the Philippines from all over the world this year for 2013. The business conditions are quite good. There seems to be a significant mindset change already that has been brought about by President Aquino on the people. I think the population and the business community are much more demanding of government officials, which is really what we want, and we'd like that to continue and bring it to a higher level, because that is what eventually will bring really progress in our country. Now, in terms of economic performance, what I want to say is the best is yet to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Secretary Greg. Secretary June, physical connectivity is a challenge in the country, especially in terms of airports and ports. Could you give us an idea of what's in store for the public from DOTC?
Well, in terms of connectivity, particularly on airports that we're working on, we are about to sign the construction work agreement with Takinaka. Hopefully, within a year's time before Christmas, we could get NAIA 3 fully operational. It is currently at 50%. We hope to get 100% of NAIA 3 up and going. We are operating Laguindingan Airport down in Cagayan de Oro, Iligan corridor. By April, that should be operational. We are bidding out Panglao Airport and Puerto Princesa under the PPP. In our rail, we are working on purchasing additional coaches for MRT 3. We are likewise pushing out MRT 7. Of course, the biggest project of DOTC, which is LRT 1. The bidding will come in May. We have 4 strong competitors there. Hopefully we get a good bid for that. LRT 2 extension to Masinag, Antipolo is in the pipeline. So while this is going on, we are continuously preparing for our audit by ICAO, February 18. Monday is a big day for us, so kindly pray for us. We'll be audited for the Category 1, Category 2 of our airports. At the same time, we are preparing for an audit to keep our seafarers on board. This is a concern of Marina, the white list of the STCW. So while this is all going, we are trying to solve the backlog in our license plates and likewise continue to apprehend colorum buses.
Okay. Thanks, Sec. June. Just a follow-up question on the issue of ports, Batangas and Subic. There's a lot of discussion in the business community about can we decongest Manila and move the traffic to Batangas and Subic?
Essentially, this will be an exercise of political will. We've been trying to keep government distance or not interventionist as far as we can. We tried to drive down fares. Apparently, driving down fares is not enough to drive shippers and shipping lines to Batangas or Subic. It might require more active intervention of government, but that is being assessed. We are awaiting a study from JICA. In fact, I see the ambassador here. We had a good discussion yesterday, and one of his primary concern is the activation or the increased utilization of Batangas and Subic. Because clearly, the ports in Manila are growing. However, our roads and the congestion in Metro Manila are deteriorating.
Thanks, Sec. June. Speaking of roads, let's shift to the other part of connectivity with Secretary Singson on the DPWH's program for 2013 and beyond.
For 2013, if we've been hearing complaints about too many projects in 2012, I think we will hear more complaints coming to 2013 because our budget for 2013 is going to increase by 55%. As far as our regular budget, there are some concerns that because of the election ban sometime late March, they're worried that the projects might get delayed. We're confident that between 70 to 80% of our regular 2013 budget will be awarded before the election ban. That means we will start even earlier this year than next year. So we will be able to catch the good dry months during the summer. And this does not even include the EDSA rehabilitation, mind you. Moving forward to 2016, we will see more roads, bridges, and in 3 particular areas. First, tourism-related. Second, food production areas. And third, connection to airports, seaports, and RoRo ports.
Okay, thank you, Sec Babes. The other piece of the puzzle in infrastructure would be power. Sec Ikot, I think the power availability has been answered, but the question topmost in the business community is power prices.
That's right. Electricity price is, if you look at it, it's actually one of the most complicated and complex formula when coming up with electricity. In fact, my wife complains about electricity prices, and when I start explaining to her, she would rather than these are the things that we're actually putting in place as well in the OE.
Thank you, Secretary Ikot. Secretary Alcala, on the matter of food, inflation is low because maybe our food prices are quite stable, except that our rice prices are quite high relative to others in ASEAN. So what can we see looking forward in terms of the food situation, food security, and prices?
Thank you very much, Bill. And by the way, let me start with good news first. Okay, our rice and corn harvest by last year had surpassed 18 million metric tons, and it has increased 8% from 2011 harvest. We definitely are on our way to attaining food staple sufficiency after 2013. Even on the corn sector, we also had a record harvest of 7 million metric tons. These achievements confirms our basic approach, which we call Agri-Pinoy, Agriculturang Pinoy or Agri-Pinoy. This means that we really mainly, we rely mainly on the industry and resourcefulness of our people to develop our natural resources and so that we can attain and sustain food security. To achieve this, we have instituted a predictable and transparent policy environment where we indeed direct subsidies for fertilizer and seeds to encourage the private business sector and enable farmers to exercise their choice about their inputs. We invested our limited public resources on real public goods, such as the rural infrastructure, better engineered roads, irrigation system, big and small post-harvest facilities, marketing and trading facilities, so that the producers have access to make markets and improve their incomes. We have invested again on our agriculture research and development in a substantial way. In addition, we have engaged and steered the local governments in delivering agriculture for the temporary negative sector's growth, but we expect that more lasting growth effects will be attained and it will be felt by the middle of this year. The growth of agriculture sector may seem modest, but it has contributed to keep average inflation rates among basic food commodities to 2.2%. This helps stabilize the cost of food to the population and labor force that has generally kept its pace compared to more adverse developments elsewhere around the world. I think compared to the cost of rice in our neighboring countries, we are trying our best to develop some new technologies to lower the cost of the production because we are paying a higher price for our irrigations in the country, and but we are getting a bigger advancement in the seeds which we are using at the fields right now.
Thank you, Sec Prosi. And now I'd like to move to one of the high growth sectors in the country, and the one that's creating a lot of jobs and a larger share to GDP. Secretary Jimenez, can you tell us what's in store for It's More Fun in the Philippines?
Well, first of all, as you may have heard, we have finally crossed the 4 million mark for arrivals. I have to confess. Thank you. I have to confess that while everyone is worried about the congestion in our roads and our airports, the influx of tourism is largely responsible for a lot of that congestion. I think the more significant figure is domestic travel has surpassed everyone's expectations. The original target was to see 35.5 million domestic trips by 2016. We are now actually at 37.5 million domestic trips in 2012. So the new target the President has approved for domestic travel is about 44 million domestic trips by 2016. It's easy to talk about, as you know, creating demand, but it is actually creating the capacity to release or realize that demand, the benefits from that demand that are the most important. So the most important change is actually happening on the ground. the development finally of LGU support around tourism development plans will determine the success or the failure of Philippine tourism. Like I always say, creating the demand turned out to be the easy part of the job, or as people refer to it today, as the fun part of the job. The hard part is actually being ready to be worthy of that demand. So it will require several things to release. It will require the ability to put people in the rooms that we will prepare. We're okay up to 2014 in our estimate because we are looking to about 7,000 new rooms coming on stream between now and 2014. But ladies and gentlemen, if we stay on target, we will still have a room gap of over 20,000 rooms by 2016. So that's how many more rooms we have to build. Fortunately, in the area of infrastructure, tourism infrastructure, there is now a devoted or committed budget annually for specific to tourism roads and infrastructure that we have in a convergence program with the DPWH. The other important thing I should note is that we are working very closely with all the other departments of government to make sure that the demand we create is met with resources. And I think as we continue to discuss this, you will see that the contribution of tourism to GDP, which is now a little below 7%, could actually grow very significantly to around almost 11% of GDP and about 18% of all employment. So to go back at the very beginning of this story, like the President said, we're not counting this in terms of the number of people coming out of airplanes. We're counting this in terms of the number of jobs and the number of business opportunities it creates for our people. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Secretary Mon. Okay, at this point, I want to open the floor to questions. We have microphones out on the floor. I want to be, as I said, very efficient, so please approach the mic, introduce yourselves, and...
The question is about the cost of doing business in this country. And you know, a significant portion of the cost is getting the permits. And you know, in one project that I was involved in, you know, the building official in this city was requesting for building permits that were secured 20, 30 years ago. So it means getting the building permit for that particular building that we were applying for would be very difficult. And it happens, no? It's unfortunate that nobody from DILG in this is among the panel members, no? But I believe that was pointed out in the last economic briefing that somebody from DILG should be among the panel because it's the LGUs, the getting of the building permit is under the turf of the DILG.
Okay, thank you. We'll take one more question here, then we'll get... There's a question? Go ahead, please.
I'm Jun Miral. I'm with the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department. I think one of the policy measures that has been identified in the medium-term Philippine Development Plan is the rationalization of fiscal incentives, which has been costing the government like around 2% of GDP. And yet, if we look at our foreign direct investment relative to other countries, it has been really at a very low, at a low point. And this bill has been filed actually in previous Congresses, but it has not been enacted into law in spite of its importance. And one of the reasons I heard is that there are two versions of this bill, one coming from the Department of Trade and Industry and another from the Department of Finance. I would just like to ask if there is already a consensus version of this bill from these two departments.
Okay, thank you. Let's let Secretary Singson answer the question first on building permits.
Well,
I'll get back to you, Ambassador, yes.
Unfortunately, the local building officials are under the direct supervision of the local governments. No? So we're trying to review the National Building Code and in particular the permitting requirements. Internet connection. And of course, I refused to amend the building code just to be able to put that in. So we are in the process of